Good evening. Welcome to the end of week 2 and the beginning of week 3 for PSSL 6240, political violence and terrorism. I just want to start off with this week's announcements. Start off with some announcements, then review last week, then preview this upcoming week. So first, we had the Adobe Connect session on Thursday. I apologize again. I think we had some serious bandwidth issues when all of us tried to VTC in simultaneously. What I'm going to do for the next one, which is going to happen in 2 weeks, I'm going to just limit it to me talking over the Adobe Connect, and then if you have a question or an issue, then your picture pops up. So I know that might be a little bit less interactive, but I think that's the only way we're going to overcome the bandwidth issues. So other than that, I thought it was a good session. I think we explored some issues. I think for those of you who were there, you got a pretty good running start for the paper. For those of you who weren't there, we've recorded the Adobe Connect session, and it's on. It's online, and you guys all have the link for it. Regarding the discussion sections, the discussion sections, the 2 of them for this week, I think they were good. Just again, try and get the initial posts in by Wednesday, so you have the remainder of the week to actually respond to your classmates. Other than that, I'm pretty happy with the length and the interaction that goes on with the students. So just again, keep it up. It's hard to do when you again have papers and you have 2 discussions a week. But that's going to be part of the criteria from here on in. So just to review last week, we talked history, and we talked about the 4 waves of terrorism. So and how each subsequent wave, the different tactics, the different ideologies surrounding those. And we went into depth on the 2 case studies, the FLN in Algeria and the Irgun in Israel. And I think those are 2 very good case studies. First, let me back up. I think some people weren't aware in those lectures, there's YouTube links in those lectures that cover a quick snapshot of the FLN and Irgun. If you did not see those, please go back to the lectures and click on those, because those give a very good sort of a documentary that gives a good overview of those 2 groups. And if you didn't get enough from the reading about those 2 groups, those videos are 10 minutes each, and they're excellent resources to give an overview. But again, those are the 2 case studies, FLN and Irgun, and please, you need to know how those organizations functioned, how they switched their tactics, and just as importantly, how they used publicity, how they used the international mass media to achieve their objectives. So please, understand that, and that should give you a good cornerstone of the history part 1. And then the second lecture dealt with, again, the definitions of terrorism, and we had a good discussion on the Adobe Connect. And that's going to kind of lead me into talking about the paper. So the paper is due a week from Sunday. Please do not wait till the last minute. I know if you went to college, you might wait till the last minute to do a paper. I know when a paper is done the last minute. I can tell. I can also tell if you're reaching to hit 1,800 to 2,000 words. I can tell you honestly right up front that if you are trying to put fluff in your paper to get that 1,800 to 2,000 word limit, you haven't done enough research. You haven't done enough of the analysis in your background paper to get it done. The reasons the papers are so short is that every sentence, every paragraph should count. It should strengthen your argument or address rebuttal arguments. So what I'm looking for, and you guys saw a sample of the paper, is a short introduction, criteria for why you think what you think, and then rebuttal arguments. Again, so intro, if you're talking about the Fort Hood shooter, you say, hey, this is terrorism. So, lay the stage, work a paragraph, no more than a paragraph or 2 on, what happened at Fort Hood, and, your thesis paragraph. And then real quick, go into the criteria. I believe the Fort Hood shooter is an act of terrorism because of these 3 to 4 reasons. 1, 2, 3, 4. Every argument, and all those reasons should strengthen your argument. So that should be the bulk of your paper. And then spend the last few hundred words, the last couple of pages on rebuttal arguments. So anticipate what someone's going to say when they say, hey, Fort Hood should not be terrorism. So anticipate that and then address those rebuttal arguments. That's very important. Again, you saw in my paper that I sent you, I saw 3 criteria why I think Hamas should be a terrorist organization. And then the 3 rebuttal arguments that say, hey, these are how you would rebut that argument. So again, tight thesis, tight arguments, go to rebuttal arguments, and you'll do fine on the paper. Just a couple of things I've seen in the past that have been wrong with the paper. 1, don't give me a history. Do not give me history. Every one of I can guarantee you, for every issue that you have, I know probably the history. I know the history behind the terrorist organization. I know the issues surrounding it. If it is so obscure that I've never heard of it, I will email you and ask for a history. But if you have a 5-page paper, an 1,800-word paper, and you've dedicated half of it to history, you've already put your grade in the C+ arena, and I will take points off right off the bat. So consider yourself warned on that. I do not want a laundry list. I do not want 15 reasons why you think Hamas or Fort Hood should be a terrorist organization. I'd rather have 2, 3, 4 at the most, and expound on those reasons. Not, again, a laundry list of reasons why you think it's a terrorist organization. Have a clear thesis statement and clear argument. I mentioned this before, but your arguments should build on each other. Every subtext, every paragraph should build on the previous one. Be unique on your idea. Do not give me why you think Al-Qaeda should be a terrorist organization. That's a pretty easy paper to write. Tell me, pick something that's controversial. If you said Al-Qaeda should not be a terrorist organization, that's a controversy. That's something that's a little bit more unique. Don't say September 11th should be terrorism. That's pretty obvious. So pick something that's controversial. And finally, just as far as formatting, as you saw in the paper, use headings, subheadings in your paper to guide your argument. So, you saw the subheadings I used. Use that type of structure in your papers so I can clearly delineate each one of your arguments. So again, if there's any questions on the paper, I'll be available. If you want to Skype with me or something like that, I can do that. Just again, if there's any issues, just let me know. So then, preview into next week. Preview into next week. 2 parts for next week. It's called History Part 2, and that's kind of the road to 9/11. And I couch this. There's 2 different arguments here. There's the argument in the documentary Road to 9/11 that says that 9/11 was a result of a long arc of history that since the Wahhabist times and since the colonial times, the Mandate period after the First World War, those are the origins of 9/11. You need to go back that far and look at the long arc of history and try and explain how 9/11 caused, or look at the result of 9/11. Fareed Zakaria, who I assigned his article, and he probably wrote the best article after 9/11 called Why They Hate Us, looked at the short history, and he looked at more recent history, not back colonial time frames, but he looked at post World War II. He looked at 1967, 1979 as the origins of 9/11, and he lays out his argument. So what I want to ask you is debate, decide, hey, is 9/11 the result of these long history arguments, or are they more the result of kind of recent political dysfunctions in the Arab world? And what I'm trying to also get at is not just 9/11, but if you recall, after 9/11, you had celebrations in the streets in places like Iraq and the Palestinian territories and Saudi Arabia, almost asking that maybe the United States deserved it. So Zakaria in the Road to 9/11 documentary, they try and ask, okay, why are these people celebrating in the streets? What are the historical underpinnings? So again, try and have that debate on the discussion board, and certainly try and delve deep into that part of history. And then the second part is terrorism finance. And the one thing I want to just, from an administrative point, say is that the lecture in terrorism finance is a static PowerPoint. So there's no me talking on that lecture. It is just a static PowerPoint informational set of slides. But I think it's a lot of great information, which is why I didn't really need a voiceover for that. And the one thing you'll get from the Napoletti, as well as that, is terrorism. I think she has the line, terrorist group is a fundraising organization that occasionally blows something up. That fundraising is the heart of terrorism, right? Is what a terrorist needs to survive. And that's what 90% of their efforts are guided to. And I think in the literature, in the policy, terrorism finance is something that is not brought out enough. And in fact, our capabilities are not emphasized enough in this role. And I think Napoletti does a pretty good. She does a pretty good. She comes from the left side of the spectrum, so keep that advised. Left side of the political spectrum, but I think when she talks about terrorism, that 90% of their efforts are on fundraising. It's true, and we've seen this. We've seen this even with Al Qaeda, which supposedly had a lot of seed money from Osama bin Laden's personal fortune. But when we looked at his after we killed him, his stash of paperwork, we see that there were squabbles over $30 hotel fees with Al Qaeda. There were squabbles over $100, $200. Al Qaeda had pretty much been a bankrupt organization by the time Osama bin Laden was killed. And it's just fascinating how that happened, and some of your articles go into that. So that covers, again, week 3. And again, I look forward to your thoughts on the discussion board, and I look forward to seeing you guys the next Adobe Connect session, not this Thursday, but the following Thursday. If there's any questions or issues, please let me know.